Om Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam Kaviviretam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvigrinanti Ye Bhurida Janaha. So we are reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are going to read today from page 83. 83, this is February 1882. This is chapter 1 actually. It's one of the earliest visits, so page 83. Before I start reading, I was thinking, a thought occurred to me that he starts his discussion. He starts his description of Sri Ramakrishna, his visits to Dakshineshwar. He goes there and he sees this maid servant outside the door, whom he asks, does the Paramahamsa live here? And Brinde, the name of the maid servant is Brinde. So does he read a lot of books? And the maidservant says, books, goodness me, no. It's all, on his tongue, whatever he says. In Bengali, mukhe mukhe, tar shab mukhe. Everything is on his tongue. And then M remarks that how surprised he was that he doesn't read books. He always thought you need to read to get knowledge. So I was thinking that this is very significant because M was a very subtle man, and that you can see throughout the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's like a very vivid, intense description, but there are layers. He used to observe things in a very subtle way. Swami Bhuteshanandaji said that he had seen M, and he said that whenever M would come to visit Belur Math, and he would meet the monks, he would observe everything keenly, and he would in fact go into the monks' rooms, see how they lived. If there was a book near somebody's bed, he would pick up the book and look at it carefully. So he would observe everything so keenly. He would get an impression of the people, what they were thinking, what they were reading, that kind of a person. So he would look and he would really see, not casually like us. So when he says that, he was very surprised that Sri Ramakrishna did not read books. So I was reminded of the Upanishadic approach to spiritual knowledge. In the Mundaka Upanishad, for example, when the student goes to the teacher and asks that most profound of questions, tell me that one thing by knowing which everything becomes known. And then the teacher says that, see, knowledge is of two kinds. See, instead of telling him directly, we would have said, oh, that's Brahman, don't you know? Basic Vedanta, by knowing Brahman, you know everything. And then teacher says, it doesn't do that. Teacher backs up a little bit and says, look, you're asking about knowing something by which everything else is known. Knowledge itself is of two kinds. I'll just recite the Upanishadic language, which I like very much, in the Mundaka Upanishad. Shaunako havai mahashalo angirasam vidivadupasana papracha. Shaunaka, who is described as a mahashala, one with big or great yagyashala of fires, sacrifice altars, which means he was a pious religious person and also possibly a very rich person, because those big Vedic fire sacrifices were expensive affairs. So obviously a man who is successful in life and also religious. So this kind of a man, he goes to the teacher, Angiras, and asks him this question. By knowing what, sir, is everything known? That he says, Angirasam Vidivadupasana, approaches him in the proper manner and bows down to him and asks him, Kasminnu bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati iti. Sir, by knowing what is everything in this universe known? What's the one thing? Now, instead of answering him directly, the teacher says, knowledge is of two kinds. Tasmai sahovacha dve vidye veditavye iti hasmayad brahma vido vadanti Parachaiva paracha. So two kinds of knowledge are there to be known. And this is what the knowers of Brahman have taught us. There is a knowledge that is transcendental, and there's the relative knowledge, the supreme knowledge and the lower knowledge. And immediately, of course, we would like to know what is this supreme knowledge and what is the lower knowledge. And then the teacher goes on to say that the lower knowledge, what we normally consider knowledge, what M thought about reading books and going to universities, all of that, the entire domain of knowledge, the teacher puts under lower knowledge. In Sanskrit, aparavidya. And he says, it is to be acquired, it is good, but it is not that higher knowledge, not the answer to the question you are asking. So the teacher says, Tatra pararig veda yajurveda samaveda atharvaveda shiksha kalpa vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti. Says that all the four Vedas, the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, all the holy books, and all the 6 disciplines, there's like 6 auxiliary disciplines called Vedangas, which you learn if you want to study the Vedas in the original and apply them. All of that, that includes grammar and rituals and poetry and things like that. All of that taken together is the lower knowledge. So the entire, the university syllabus is lower knowledge. And so immediately that creates a curiosity within us. Then what could be that higher knowledge? Because you have exhausted the domain of knowledge. And then the teacher says, Tatra parayaya tad aksharam adhigamyate. The higher knowledge, the supreme knowledge, the transcendent knowledge is that by which the imperishable is known. He calls it the imperishable, akshara. So there is some imperishable, some higher reality which is to be known. And not only that higher reality is unique, it's something special by knowing which everything is known. Even the knowledge of that higher reality, the realization of that is not like other knowledge. So that's what is being indicated there. In the Keno Upanishad, for example, the teacher tells the student, Na vidmo na vijanimo yathaitad anushishyat. We do not know how we can teach you that. We do not know it ourselves. That means do not know it ourselves means do not know it as an object, as one of the branches, many branches of knowledge with which you are acquainted. We do not know it in that way. And we cannot teach you that in that way. Why not? The teacher goes on to say, Anya deva tadvidita tatho avidita dadhi iti sushruma purvesham yenastad vyachachakshiri. Because this spiritual knowledge which you are looking for is other than whatever is known. So the entire range of things which are known, it's other than that. It's not what you know, what anybody knows. So it's unknown. He says, no, it's other than the unknown also. So that is the unique thing. Now, what is that one thing which can never be? It's not known and it can never be known. And yet it is not unknown either. So from an Advaitic perspective, of course, it is the self, the real self. Whatever you can know about the self is an object and is not the self. Atma, anatma, self, not self. So whatever you can know, we can know the body, it's not the self. We can know the physiological processes in the body, life, prana, not the self. We can know our thoughts, feelings, emotions, not the self. We can know our understanding also, what we understand about the world, about ourselves, about Vedanta, what we understand about Vedanta. All that we read, that also we know. So that's not the self either. Intellect. And beyond that, if you go beyond whatever is known, you hit a blank wall, the Anandamaya Kosha. But that's also known as the blankness. So that's also not the self. So it's whatever you know is not the self. And yet the self is not something unknown because it is the self. It is ever revealed. In fact, that alone makes it possible to know anything at all. It is always, in one sense, it is always known. So Vivekananda says it is more than known. He says you must not go away with the idea that it cannot be known. It is more than known. It is that self first, then any other knowledge. Every other knowledge is possible because of that self. That shining, everything else shines. By its light, everything is lit up. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Tasya bhasha sarvamidam vibhati. So that is the first thing that the Upanishads say. What you are looking for is not something to be found in the libraries. Now, is that helpful? All the books and texts we study? Yes. But what it tells us is not going to satisfy our hearts. So there was this devotee who used to come to Sri Ramakrishna, Mahimacharan. He was very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. And in one place in the gospel, we find he is saying, he was very scholarly and also spiritual seeker. So in the gospel, we find in one place he's saying, is it easy to realize God? How much you have to study to begin with? How much you have to study? Ananta Shastra, endless are the scriptures. Immediately Sri Ramakrishna rebukes him, corrects him. Boi pore kotodur jana jay. How far will you know by reading books? You don't know this by reading books. Mahimacharan is saying, there are so many books to read. There's endless. So he had actually a house full of books. And people used to be impressed by seeing all these books in his house. But that is not what is meant by spiritual knowledge. In fact, one of the reasons we may say why the Avatara was actually practically he didn't have school, college degrees. He's not actually literally illiterate because he could actually sign his name, and he learned a lot just by listening. But he did not read books. So he just taught directly from experience. I think it's to demonstrate that what spiritual knowledge we are talking about here in Vedanta, especially in Vedanta and Advaita Vedanta, it seems to be there are lots of books. So one might feel that it's about reading and thinking and understanding something, which is a part of Advaita Vedanta especially, but it's not what is aimed at. Swami Bhuteshanji told us about his teacher when he was a student. He was a student of philosophy in Calcutta University, and the great professor S.N. Dasgupta, Surendranath Dasgupta, was Swami Bhuteshanji's teacher. S.N. Dasgupta is a legend in the field of Indian philosophy. In fact, 5 volumes of the history of philosophy, S.N. Dasgupta's book. But Swami Bhuteshanji told us that when they were students, when he was a student, he visited his house, Professor Dasgupta's house, S.N. Dasgupta's house. He was knighted by the British, his Sir Surendranath Dasgupta. So the whole house was full of books, and there were books on the table, on the chairs, and indeed on the carpet, on the floor also. And in those days, he was a full professor of philosophy in university. So he was very British. He was dressed in a suit and boots. With his boots on a pile of books, he puts his like booted foot on a pile of books, presumably including scriptures. And he says grandly, "You see all these books? I have read them all." And Swami Bhuteshanji was saying that we thought, oh my God, what is this? So this is not spiritual knowledge. There is a big difference. This may be there. Great scholars can certainly be highly spiritual, but you don't have to be a scholar to be spiritual. And sometimes this can be an obstacle in itself. This idea that I've read all these books and I know all of it, that itself can be an obstacle. On a more humorous note, I knew this gentleman, who's a very nice gentleman. He's a retired professor of literature, Prabir Bhui. He's passed on now. We used to go together to various seminars and workshops in Calcutta University. So he was an elderly gentleman, and he'd remained unmarried all his life. So whenever he was asked why he did not get married, he said, "I have no space in my home. It's full of books." And he had to construct an extension to his home to house even more books. He had no space for a wife in his home, at home. So books. Now this initial conversation with Sri Ramakrishna M is asking this crucial question. Under what conditions does one see God? This is on page 83. The Master. Cry to the Lord with an intensely yearning heart, and you will certainly see him. People shed a whole jug of tears for wife and children. They swim in tears for money. But who weeps for God? Cry to him with a real cry. So the deep desire, restlessness we feel for worldly things, success in the world or failure in the world, makes us so restless, so disturbed, so restless. Whether it is an academic degree or money or relationships, we become so restless over these things. If they're going well, we're so happy. If they're not going well, things are not going well, become so unhappy. Now imagine if that kind of restlessness, that kind of happiness, unhappiness can be connected with God. I want God and nothing else. Nothing else matters to me. Then one can realize God. That's what he is saying. Master sang, cry to your mother Shama with a real cry, O mind, and how can she hold herself from you? How can Shama stay away? How can your mother Kali hold herself away? So God cannot hold herself or himself away from you if you cry for God. If you really, really intensely want God, there's one thing that is guaranteed. You will get God. Things in the world are not guaranteed. One may cry potfuls of tears for money and one may still remain poor. But for God, that is one thing is guaranteed. If you really want God, you will get God. Continuing, he said, longing is like the rosy dawn. After the dawn, out comes the sun. Longing is followed by the vision of God. And such people, when that longing comes, they don't care for anything else. Recently, I saw the news that Subhadra Mataji has passed away. She is, some people call her Tapovani Mataji. So she was sannyasini, she was a devotee of Krishna, the child Krishna, Gopala. She was from Udupi in Karnataka, and a follower of Madhva Vedanta, the dualistic Vedanta. So I met her about 16 years ago. But I did not know so many details. Little bit I had heard about her because I was looking for the monks who were spiritually advanced. So I just wanted to visit them and see how they were. One of the names which came up was her name, Subhadra Mataji, a worshipper of the child Krishna. And I knew that she had, in those days, a woman all alone. She had gone all the way up to Gangotri and beyond Gangotri in Tapovan, which is just a harsh, icy wasteland, terrible. So she stayed there in a cave for 7, 8 or 9 years. Now more information is there on the internet. If you look up, she was interviewed and some people have gathered information. I think they've written a Hindi book about her life also. So she stayed there. And it's not that, you see, what's interesting is there's no calculation behind it. How will I stay there? How much money is necessary? What are the warm clothes necessary? What equipment is necessary? Who will supply me with food? Who will supply me with medicines? And in case of emergency, whom do I call? Nothing. She had no idea. This woman from the south of India who had absolutely no idea of the mountain, she goes to this place and she stays there, completely dedicating herself to the will of the Lord, depending on Sri Krishna. And there were times when water is the problem. You might think that that there's a glacier and snow and everything, you get water, but water is really a problem there. And she mentions how she had to collect snow, to melt snow and boil it. And that also she had to be careful because she had a very limited supply of kerosene. The stove which she had, there's only one stove. If it failed, that would mean death for her because there's no other way of cooking or heating anything. There were times when she collapsed. In initial days, she would faint often because she had no idea that there's lack of oxygen there. She didn't know anything. But what it shows is there's no calculation behind it. no attempt to protect oneself. So she just depends on God. And God takes care. She lived there for 7-8 years until she got this command to move to a lower place. Lower means not much lower, 9,000, still 9,000 feet up. That's where I found her. And so her attitude changed. Instead of being completely cut off from society and dedicating herself only to the thought of God, she now found God in everybody, and she would feed everybody. She would cook and feed everybody. So I had heard about her, and I went to meet her. Just a very brief meeting with her. She would call everybody Gopal. So I remember I went to her ashram, and there's this ashram. It's a very small place, about as big as my room here. And it's in the last village. It's called Dharali, the last village before Gangotri, or 26 kilometers before Gangotri. And I found a small group of devotees sitting there in a small shrine to Krishna. That's where she would perform her worship. And I had heard a story of how she was doing arati to Krishna, and one of the stream of pilgrims, they arrived, and the usual shout, "Mataji, kuch khilaiye, please feed us, Mataji." And she puts the lamp down and goes and starts making a chapati. And the devotees, out of irritation, they said, "Mother, please finish the arati at least. Finish Gopal's arati before you start cooking again." And from the kitchen she says, "Kyun Baba, yahi to Gopal ki arati ho rahi hai." Why, my child? I am doing Gopal's arati. This is the arati of Gopal. So this is the worship of Gopala. And like that, once she had a fever. So these are stories which I had heard. Once she had a fever, and even then people came, like, "Please feed us, give us food, mother." And she would get up and cook. And somebody asked her, "Don't you get irritated? People have no consideration for your health, your exhaustion." And they keep on asking, "Feed us, mother, feed us, mother." And she thought for a moment, and then she said, "Yes, different kinds of people come here, it's true. But my child, everybody is Gopala. They're all Gopala." So that was her attitude. My meeting was very brief. I went there and I saw some people were sitting around, and some were putting that money in front of the picture of Gopala. And she was not there. So I had taken 20 rupees, I remember. I took it out and was about to put money in the front of Gopala. And suddenly, like a flash of orange, she arrives. She snatched the money out of my hand and put it back in my pocket and said, "Not you, Gopala." So she would call me Gopala. She'd call everybody Gopala. "Not you, Gopala." And then she said, "I want to talk to you, but I have to go now. This vehicle is going down to the foothills, and I have to buy vegetables. And if I don't take this vehicle, there's no way of going. So I have to leave. But I wish I could have spoken with you." And if you're saying in Hindi. But at that time, what you see in the video now, if you will see the new ones, she is very wrinkled and old, and health is broken down. But at that time, when I saw her, she was quite strong. She must have been in her 60s or something. And she said, I would have loved to speak to you, but I have to go now." And instead of me giving her money, she brought all of us outside, and then she told the gathered group to do pranams to me. This is "Inko pranam karo," and give him some money. And then she left. So that was my meeting. But my recollection was how completely dedicated she is to Krishna. She also mentioned that there's this young girl who has come inspired, and who is well educated. In Hindi, she was saying. So to become her disciple. And she was saying that I've told her to go and teach the children in the villages, mountain villages, to teach them. So yeah. But this intense surrender to God and no calculation. That I will do a lot of spiritual practice, but I need certain things first. Proper air-conditioned cabin in the Himalayas at the right altitude, and mosquito nets to prevent bugs from coming in, and a good health insurance plan there, and so on. Then it will not work. It has to be like a complete surrender to God. So continuing, he said, "Longing is like the rosy dawn. After the dawn, out comes the sun. Longing is followed by the vision of God." So this longing, in bhakti, it is called vyakulata, intense longing. In Vedanta, it is called mumukshutvam, intense desire to be free. The same thing. God reveals himself to a devotee who feels drawn to him by the combined force of these three attractions: the attraction of worldly possessions for the worldly man, the child's attraction for its mother, and the husband's attraction for the chaste wife. If one feels drawn to him by the combined force of these three attractions, then through it one can attain him. The point is to love God even as the mother loves the child, the chaste wife her husband, and the worldly man his wealth. Add together these three forces of love, these three powers of attraction, and give it all to God. Then you will certainly see him. So these examples are ways of we should try to imagine the force of longing and desire in these three cases, and then try to think what would it be like to feel a similar longing for God, to see God, to feel the presence of God. Then he says, it is necessary to pray to him with a longing heart. The kitten knows only how to call its mother, crying mew mew. It remains satisfied wherever its mother puts it. And the mother cat puts the kitten sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes on the floor, and sometimes on the bed. When it suffers, it cries only mew mew. That's all it knows. But as soon as the mother hears this cry, wherever she may be, she comes to the kitten. Now, the thing is, when we suffer in the world, we tend to keep these two things separate, the world and God. So sometimes we make a mistake that God is like a hobby. I'm a spiritual seeker, so I have some meditation to perform, some books to read, some bhajans to hear, some puja to perform, and there's a world with which I'm struggling outside. But bring them together. If there is real suffering in the world also, take that suffering to God. We make a mistake by taking it to people, either grumbling, complaining, fighting, whatever it is. We go to people, or we feel that we are nobody to hear us. But take it first and straight away to God only. There's only one who can hear us, and who is completely on our side and who can help us actually, and that is God. So that's an important instruction. As whenever it suffers, it cries only mew mew. That means you cry to God. It can be completely internal. Nobody need to hear anything at all. I've told you this story earlier about a monk who was terminally ill. I was also in the hospital at that time. I was a novice. So I was young, so all day long lying in the bed, I would stay awake at night also, so I didn't get sleep. So, and all the others were old monks who were very sick, most of them dying. One monk was there who had advanced terminal cancer in the stomach. All day long, he lay there. He was elderly. I think he was in his 80s. He lay there without a single word, never said anything, quietly. But at night, he would talk, and he would talk to the Holy Mother. And I would hear. I was in the next bed. Once I heard him say that, Mother, it hurts a lot. It hurts a lot. Let the body go now. And then he's saying again, oh, it will not go now. After a few days, all right. I could only hear one side of the conversation, of course. And then I was discharged from the hospital, and I also heard, very interestingly, that a few days later, he did actually pass away. So you take the complaint to God. Don't say, as far as human beings are concerned, don't say anything. That itself is a great practice. It was Sunday afternoon when M came on his third visit to the master. He had been profoundly impressed by his first two visits to this wonderful man. He had been thinking of the master constantly and of the utterly simple way he explained the deep truths of spiritual life. Never before had he met such a man. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the small couch. The room was filled with devotees. There's a footnote here. The word devotees, so this is a word which is used throughout the book. The word is generally used in the text to denote one devoted to God, a worshipper of the personal God, or a follower of the path of love. A devotee of Sri Ramakrishna is one who is devoted to Sri Ramakrishna and follows his teachings. Then, the word disciple, when used in connection with Sri Ramakrishna, refers to one who has been initiated into spiritual life by Sri Ramakrishna and who regarded him as his guru. So, devotee and disciple. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the small couch. The room was filled with devotees who had taken advantage of the holiday to come and see the master. M had not yet become acquainted with any of them, so he took his seat in a corner. The master smiled as he talked with the devotees. He addressed his words particularly to a young man of 19 named Narendranath, footnote, subsequently world famous as Swami Vivekananda. A young man of 19 named Narendranath, who was a college student and frequented the Sadharan Brahma Samaj, the general Brahma Samaj, which was one branch of one breakaway group of the reform movement, originally started by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. His eyes were bright, his words were full of spirit, and he had the look of a lover of God. M guessed that the conversation was about worldly men who look down on those who aspire to spiritual things. The master was talking about the great number of such people in the world and about how to deal with them. Master to Narendra, how do you feel about it? Worldly people say all kinds of things about the spiritually minded. But look here, when an elephant moves along the street, any number of curs and other small animals may bark and cry after it. But the elephant doesn't even look back at them. If people speak ill of you, what will you think of them? Narendra, I shall think that the dogs are barking at me. Master smiling, oh no, you mustn't go that far, my child. Laughter, so people laugh. God dwells in all beings, but you may be intimate only with good people. You must keep away from the evil-minded. God is even in the tiger, but you cannot embrace the tiger on that account. Laughter. So you see this often, with laughter. So he was apparently a very funny person. You would often, when he's talking, we would have people. One of the devotees said sometimes we would roll on the ground with laughter. He would be so funny. But you cannot embrace the tiger on that account. Laughter. You may say, why run away from a tiger, which is also a manifestation of God? The answer to that is, those who tell you to run away too, those who tell you to run away are also manifestations of God. And why shouldn't you listen to them? Let me tell you a story. In a forest, there lived a holy man who had many disciples. One day he taught them to see God in all beings, and knowing this, to bow low before them all. A disciple went to the forest to gather wood for the sacrificial fire. Suddenly he heard an outcry. Get out of the way, a mad elephant is coming. All but the disciple of the holy man took to their heels. He reasoned that the elephant was also God in another form. Then why should he run away from it? He stood still, bowed before the animal, and began to sing its praises. The mahout of the elephant was shouting, run away, run away. But the disciple didn't move. The animal seized him with its trunk, cast him to one side, and went on its way. Hurt and bruised, the disciple lay unconscious on the ground. Hearing what had happened, his teacher and his brother disciples came to him and carried him to the hermitage. With the help of some medicine, he soon regained consciousness. Someone asked him, you knew that the elephant was coming. Why didn't you leave the place? But, he said, our teacher has told us that God himself has taken all these forms of animals as well as men. Therefore, Thinking it was only the elephant god that was coming, I didn't run away. At this, the teacher said, "Yes, my child, it is true that the elephant god was coming, but the Mahut god forbade you to stay there. Since all are manifestations of God, why didn't you trust the Mahut's words? You should have heeded the words of the Mahut god." Laughter. So it's a very subtle point, but it's an important one. When you talk about Vedanta and the pervasion of God, that is, the God is immanent. See, if God is beyond, then all of this, what we experience, is not God. But if God is immanent, immanent means in and through whatever you experience, all the people you meet, the divine is in them. All the animals and the objects that, so some animals and some people are dangerous, some are harmful, some places are dirty. So what about God, who is in the dangerous people, in the dangerous animals, in the dirty places? What about that? If it's God, then why should we not? Why should we avoid it? So there's an answer to this. How do you maintain ethics? What are the ethics of seeing God in all? This story is an important guideline to that. It's funny and it's very effective, and you don't forget it. But remember, you have a particular goal. The goal is God realization. So until that is done, you need to maintain your, your body, your peace of mind, your health. I've heard Swami Pavitranandaji, who was here in the Vedanta Society of New York, he used to say, it seems, "Do not abuse a horse you cannot dismount from," talking about the body. It's no use saying, "I'm not the body, not the mind," if every little thing which affects your body will affect you immediately and you cannot do your spiritual practices and you become depressed, then be careful. Of course, you shouldn't abuse a horse in any case, but especially one you cannot dismount from. Is there a condition where one actually can see God in everything and will not care? Yes, that is also there. That one may actually see God in the tiger and will not care. And the tiger will come and eat you up. That also you should not care, because you actually see the reality beyond this body. And that we see in the lives of some of the direct disciples. Once, I think Vivekananda himself, he was feeling that, let this body be of some use to somebody. I'm just wandering around uselessly in this world, and there's so many poor people, I'm eating their food. And he went into a deep forest and he sat down, and a tiger came. And he thought, good, at least this body will feed this poor animal. The tiger looked at him and went away. Luckily, didn't eat him up. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. You can actually, there is a state in which one does not really care for the body, but then one has already become enlightened. One really does not need the body then. But until that point, one has to be honest. One sadhu used to say in Uttarakhand, I met him in Haridwar, "Apni सच्चाई को स्वीकार कीजिए." He said, acknowledge your own truth. Very important point. I know the highest teachings of Vedanta. I understand it all. But right now, this particular personality has certain limitations. It is not sattvic enough, not strong enough, not selfless enough, not brave enough to manifest those truths fully in life today. So I understand that. And so I must develop myself, but knowing the truth, acknowledging the truth of what it is right now, to acknowledge your own truth. अपनी सच्चाई को स्वीकार करना चाहिए. अपनी सच्चाई, your own truth. That means where we are. It is said in the scriptures that water is a form of God, but some water is fit to be used for worship, some water for washing the face, and some only for washing plates or dirty linen. This last sort cannot be used for drinking or for a holy purpose. In like manner, God undoubtedly dwells in the hearts of all, holy and unholy, righteous and unrighteous. But a man should not have dealings with the unholy, the wicked, and the impure. He must not be intimate with them. With some of them he may exchange words, but with others he shouldn't even go that far. He should keep aloof from such people. So these are instructions especially for any serious spiritual seeker. Until one is far advanced, that thing about a fence You have a sapling which comes up, you need a fence around it. Otherwise, goats and cows will come and eat it up if it's on the roadside. But when that sapling grows up into a big and stout banyan tree, you can even tie an elephant to it. Nothing will happen. So until that time, protection. Protection means strict personal discipline, a simple life, keeping away from evil influences. It could be other people, it could be just the information coming in from the world. This the world which we live in. So one must be careful there. A devotee. Sir, if a wicked man is about to do harm or actually does so, should we keep quiet then? Master. A man living in society should make a show of tamas to protect himself from evil-minded people. But he should not harm anybody in anticipation of harm likely to be done him. And then he tells a story. Listen to a story. Some cowherd boys used to tend their cows in a meadow where a terrible poisonous snake lived. Everyone was on the alert for fear of it. One day a brahmachari was going along the meadow. The boys ran to him and said, "Revered sir, please don't go that way. A venomous snake lives over there." "What of it, my good children?" said the brahmachari. "I am not afraid of the snake. I know some mantras." So saying, he continued on his way along the meadow. But the cowherd boys, being afraid, did not accompany him. In the meantime, the snake moved swiftly toward him with upraised hood. As soon as it came near, he recited a mantra, and the snake lay at his feet like an earthworm. The brahmachari said, "Look here, why do you go about doing harm? Come, I will give you a holy word. By repeating it, you will learn to love God. Ultimately, you will realize Him and so get rid of your violent nature." Saying this, he taught the snake a holy word and initiated him into spiritual life. The snake bowed before the teacher and said, "Revered sir, how shall I practice spiritual discipline?" "Repeat that sacred word," said the teacher, "and do no harm to anybody." As he was about to depart, the brahmachari said, "I shall see you again." Some days passed, and the cowherd boys noticed that the snake would not bite. They threw stones at it. Still it showed no anger. It behaved as if it were an earthworm. One day one of the boys came close to it, caught it by its tail, and whirling it round and round, dashed it again and again on the ground and threw it away. The snake vomited blood and became unconscious. It was stunned, it could not move. So thinking it dead, the boys went their way. Late at night, the snake regained consciousness. Slowly and with great difficulty, it dragged itself into its hole. Its bones were broken, and it could scarcely move. Many days passed, the snake became a mere skeleton covered with a skin. Now and then it would come out in search of food. For fear of the boys, it would not leave its hole during the daytime. Since receiving the sacred word from the teacher, it had given up doing harm to others. It maintained its life on dirt, leaves, or the fruit that dropped from the trees. About a year later, the brahmachari came that way again and asked after the snake. The cowherd boys told him that it was dead. But he couldn't believe them. He knew that the snake would not die before attaining the fruit of the holy word with which it had been initiated. He found his way to the place and, searching here and there, called it by the name he had given it. Hearing the teacher's voice, it came out of its hole and bowed before him with great reverence. "How are you?" asked the brahmachari. "I am well, sir," replied the snake. But the teacher asked, "Why are you so thin?" The snake replied, "Revered sir, you ordered me not to harm anybody, so I have been living only on leaves and fruit. Perhaps that has made me thinner." The snake had developed the quality of sattva. It could not be angry with anyone. It had totally forgotten that the cowherd boys had almost killed it. The brahmachari said, "It can't be mere want of food that has reduced you to this state. There must be some other reason. Think a little." Then the snake remembered that the boys had dashed it against the ground. It said, "Yes, revered sir, now I remember. The boys one day dashed me violently against the ground. They are ignorant after all. They didn't realize what a great change had come over my mind. How could they know I wouldn't bite or harm anyone? The brahmachari exclaimed, "What a shame! You're such a fool. You don't know how to protect yourself. I asked you not to bite, but I didn't forbid you to hiss. Why don't you scare them by hissing? So you must hiss at wicked people. You must frighten them, lest they should do you harm. But never inject your venom into them. One must not injure others. In this creation of God, there is a variety of things: men, animals, trees, and plants. Among the animals, some are good, some bad. There are ferocious animals like the tiger. Some trees bear fruit, sweet as nectar, and others bear fruit that is poisonous. Likewise, among human beings, there are good and the wicked, the holy and the unholy. There are some who are devoted to God, and others who are attached to the world. Men may be divided into 4 classes: those bound by the fetters of the world, the seekers after liberation, the liberated, and the ever free. Among the ever free, what we may count sages like Narada. They live in the world for the good of others, to teach men spiritual truth. Those in bondage are sunk in worldliness and forgetful of God. Not even by mistake do they think of God. The seekers after liberation want to free themselves from attachment to the world. Some of them succeed, others do not. The liberated souls, such as sadhus and mahatmas, are not entangled in the world as in lust and gold. Their minds are free from worldliness. Besides, they always meditate on the lotus feet of God. So this topic is going on. Let me finish this. Suppose a net has been cast into a lake to catch fish. Some fish are so clever that they're never caught in the net. They are like the ever free. But most of the fish are entangled in the net. Some of them try to free themselves from it, and they are like those who seek liberation. But not all the fish that struggle succeed. A very few do jump out of the net, making a big splash in the water. Then the fishermen shout, "Look, there goes a big one." But most of the fish caught in the net cannot escape, nor do they make any effort to get out. On the contrary, they burrow into the mud with the net in their mouths and lie there quietly thinking, "We need not fear anymore. We are quite safe here." But the poor things do not know that the fishermen will drag them out with the net. They are like the men bound to the world. The bound souls are tied to the world by the fetters of lust and gold. They are bound hand and foot, thinking that lust and gold will make them happy and give them security. They do not realize it will lead them to annihilation. When a man thus bound to the world is about to die, his wife asks, "You're about to go, but what have you done for me?" Again, such is his attachment to the things of the world that when he sees the lamp burning brightly, he says, "Dim the light, too much oil is being used." And he is on his deathbed. The bound souls never think of God. If they get any leisure, they indulge in idle gossip and foolish talk, or they engage in fruitless work. If you ask any of them, one of them, the reason, he answers, "Oh, I cannot keep still, so I'm making a hedge." When time hangs heavy on their hands, they perhaps start playing cards. There was deep silence in the room. And well, there might be deep silence in the room. So it's a very harsh commentary on how we lead our lives. Yes, let me see what activities there in the chat. Rodrigo said, I have some samples of Sri Ramakrishna's handwriting in Bengali. Yes, there are samples of Sri Ramakrishna's handwriting in Bengali. John Janet. Oh, Bill's saying that he heard John Janet quietly saying mew mew. Yeah, as a practice of surrender to God. Ramya says, Swamiji, if we take our problems and complaints to only God and seek no human help, would that still amount to titiksha? Certainly. First of all, take it to God in your heart of hearts. And if there are people to be told, some help to be sought, there's no harm in telling people, but take it to God. The real solution comes from there. You'll see things will work out. Girish says, can Nirguna Brahman be the object of bhakti, or bhakti is associated only with Saguna Brahman? Bhakti is associated with Saguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman is knowledge, the path of knowledge. Saguna Brahman is the path of bhakti. What would devotion to timeless, formless Nirguna Brahman ever mean? So therefore, the path of Nirguna Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss, it is to be realized. It is in the path of knowledge. And what knowledge? Realization that I am that. So in one place, Swami Bhuteshanji, I was reading, he says, it's Brahma Jnana, not Brahma Darshana. Ishwar Darshana and Brahma Jnana. You have knowledge of Brahman, realization of Brahman. And that is of the form, I am Brahman. There exists Brahman, I am that Brahman. That is the path of knowledge. And devotion and leading ultimately to Ishwara Darshana, actually mystical experiences of one's Ishta Devata, that is towards Saguna Brahman. So in Bengali, he said Brahma Gyan or Ishwar Darshan. Vishwanath says, the Swamini's life seems like a practical demonstration of what Sri Krishna says. Ananyas chintayanto mam yogakshemam vahamyam. Yes, it is true. Yogakshemam vahamyam means the Lord says, if you think about me one-pointedly and completely surrendered to me, what you need in your life, I will take care of it. There, yoga and kshema means what you need in life, I will bring for you. And kshema means what you have which needs to be protected, I will protect. I'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about your worldly. But the condition is you have to be completely devoted to God. So if we cannot do that, then you take care of your own affairs, but spiritualize it. So that's an in-between thing. Don't think you're doing worldly things, but spiritualize it. Whether it's your financial affairs, whether it's keeping your house clean, whether anything from taking a bath to eating, let it all be connected to God somehow. So there's this interesting story about, I think its name is Jagannath Pandit. He was in Puri, probably, who was writing a commentary on the entire Mahabharata. Great scholar. So he came to this portion where this verse is, where Sri Krishna says, I will carry to him whatever is needed. Yogakshema Vahamyaham means I will carry. And this Pandit thought, that's too much. The Lord will not carry. Why will the Lord carry to me what I need? The Lord will grant me what I need. The Lord grants. The Lord will confer upon the devotee what the devotee needs. Not carry literally. That's what the word Vahami means, to carry. So he cut it out, scratched it out with a pen, and he changed it to Dadamyaham, I give or I grant. Now that day, in that scholar's house, his wife was there waiting. There was nothing, no food that day. And she was worried, what would we have for lunch? And suddenly this very beautiful little boy came with a big basket on his head with all sorts of nice foodstuffs. And so she was surprised and she said, who sent you? And he said, your husband has sent me. All this food is for you and your husband. And then she saw there was this big mark of somebody, like being caned. There was a stripe across his back, like a wound. So she was shocked. He said, who has hit you? And the little boy said, your husband hit me. He has created this mark. And she was horrified. And she was like, let him come home. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. So when the scholar came home hungry, and his wife scolded him, why did you beat that poor little child? What a beautiful little child. He bought all the food for us. And why did you beat him? Then this man was taken aback. What do you mean? I never met such a boy. And certainly I didn't beat anybody. But no, there was this scratch, this long, like a mark across his back. And suddenly he got this shock. He realized the Lord actually literally carried whatever we need for us. And because I had scratched out the Lord's words, it's like a scratch across his back, and so he was very repentant. He was overcome with emotion. Yeah, so the information you find about this Mataji, you will find how many times she was helped by people. She had absolutely either no food, no medicine, or she was terribly sick. But something happened and somebody comes and helps. Then Alpana Chatterjee asks, does Karma Yoga cleanse only the subtle body, or cleanses and modifies the causal body as well? It purifies the subtle body. Causal body is nothing but the subtle body itself in its causal form, Bijavastha, that which is manifested in a subtle body that exists in the seed from the causal body. Now, why I'm saying causal body will not be totally cleansed, let us say, by Karma Yoga, because it will be modified. There'll be newer tendencies which will come into the subtle body, which will go back in the seed form, and newer tendencies will be created. So subtle body will definitely, the causal body will also change because new seed forms will emerge there. But the core vasanas will not go away. They will still remain in a seed form until jnana comes, until enlightenment comes. So the Gita says, and the Upanishads also say, Bhidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarva samshaya kriyante chasya karmani tasmin rishte paravare. Once, when one realizes the transcendent and immanent reality, para means the transcendent, nirguna Brahman. Immanent means that same Brahman manifested as this universe. When one realizes that, Bhidyate hridaya granthi, the knots of the heart are cut asunder. That's a very poetic way of saying ignorance is destroyed. One realizes aham brahmasmi. The world is nothing but Brahman. So Bhidyate hridaya granthi. Chidyante sarva samshaya. All doubts go away. This knowledge becomes absolutely clear. It's not a doubtful knowledge anymore. Kriyante chasya karmani. All past karmas are burnt up. So there'll be no future birth. And also these, all the tendencies, samskaras, they are like roasted seeds, they say. So they do not germinate into actual desires anymore. A kind of tendency will remain. So Sri Ramakrishna likes jalebi. So after enlightenment also he will like jalebi. But it's not something that binds him. Then Prabir Babu asks, we read God himself has taken all these forms. How is this different from Advaita? Brahman is the only reality. The same thing. Same thing. But this God himself has taken all these forms. You can interpret it in Vishishtadvaita way also. Abhijit says, does devotion to the formless manifest as unconditional love for all? Yes. Devotion to the formless will be not in the form of bhakti, the realization of the oneness of all beings, that God alone exists in all forms. So in the 12th chapter, it says, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Very interesting. Arjuna asks the question in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, who is a better knower of yoga? Who is a better yogi? The one devoted to bhakti yoga or to jnana yoga? To an impersonal absolute or to the personal God? And Sri Krishna actually says the one who devoted to the personal God is a better knower of yoga, is better, will attain to me. Then what about the one who wants to realize the impersonal absolute? Sri Krishna says they also will attain to me. And he characterizes them as Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. They are devoted to the formless absolute and they are engaged in the welfare of all beings. Now, why does he add that? Because you see the same reality in all beings, and so your attitude towards all will be one of love and expressed in service. It may be service in the form of schools and colleges and hospitals, that also may be there, but it just may be in the service of, in the way of teaching or sharing your spiritual knowledge, or in the way of just blessings, just praying for their welfare. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. Now a question may be, why did he say that the path of devotion is better? Krishna said. So he says the path of devotion is better because it's easier. The path of the Nirguna Brahman is a little more difficult. He says, Klesho adhikas tarastesham abhyakta sakta chetasam abhyakta he gati dukkham dehavad bhiravapyate. For those on the path of knowledge, the difficulty is a little more, he says. So I do not want to examine this at all. Then it's better to have devotion to God. I want to proceed on the spiritual life only as Swami Sarva Priyananda. This body, this person. So then it's better to follow the path of devotion. Then Rekha ji asks, if one takes problems to God and asks for some help, does that constitute desire? No, it does not constitute desire. Because one wants God, and one's goal is God realization. If I have problems and I want a solution of these problems, I want a job, I want relationships to succeed, I want, even worse, the neighbor to be punished, and for these reasons I go to God, then those are desires. Those are worldly desires. Will it still work? It will still work probably, but one will be trapped further in samsara. The more you try to satisfy worldly desires, whether by worldly means or by supernatural means, one will be trapped in samsara. I remember once I was in this monastery in India. So this lady, she obviously had an urgent question. She asked, Swami, may I ask you a question? Just in front of the gate of the monastery. He said, yes, of course. He said, these mantras, do they work? Are they effective? I said, of course, mantras work. They are effective. They come from God. And she burst into tears. Oh, she said, oh my God, I'm finished. My neighbor is this evil person, and she has employed a black magician and cast a mantra on me, and it's going to ruin me. So I immediately said, no, this is all superstition. It doesn't work at all. It's all silly. It's nonsense. So she looked at me with great skepticism. This one moment ago, he was saying it works, and now he's saying it doesn't work at all. Pravir Babu, you had your hand up. Did you
Yes.
want to ask? Okay.
Maharaj, I was listening to this professor from Calcutta. He's an expert on I forget the name. He said liberation according to Advaita Vedanta is not a resultant state, as the aspire is not seeking liberation. But he said that the Jivan Mukta is not looking for bhakti, but it becomes the nature of the liberated soul. Now, I just wanted your comment on this.
It is a very beautiful way of putting it. It's not that bhakti and jnana are exclusive paths. It is often seen that those who are enlightened in the path of Advaita Vedanta also, they have become Jivan Mukta. They are also full of devotion. I have come across so many such cases, and that's a very genuine devotion. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that of all the devotees that I have, the closest, the dearest to me is the Jnani. The four kinds of devotees: those who are in distress, those who want something in the world, those who are inquiring about me, and those who know me. And it says, those who know me, Jnani, they are the dearest to me. Why? Because I abide in them and they abide in me. They know me in truth. For them, I am real. So often you will find in the lives of Jnanis, who are Jivan Muktas, you will find a manifestation of bhakti. Now that bhakti is not an instrumental kind of bhakti. Instrumental means by practice of bhakti yoga, I will get God realization. Not that kind anymore. It's an ahetuki bhakti, a causeless devotion. It's love for the sake of love. In the Bhagavatam, it is said that the qualities of God are so excellent, so glorious is the Lord, that even those who are Jivan Muktas, who have no desire in their life, even God realization, they don't have a desire. They're fulfilled. They are filled with love for thee. Such are thy qualities, my Lord. So it's a very natural expression of enlightenment. In fact, a Jivan Mukta who does not have devotion, sometimes it may not be manifest. It just may be in their hearts. They may look very dry and forbidding from the distance. One of the most, I just mentioned Tapovan, which is above Gangotri. So there was a great sadhu there, non-dualist, Tapovan Swami, who was the guru of Swami Chinmayananda, Chinmay Mission, Chinmayanandaji. I had occasion to talk with his sevak, the one who served him for many years, Sundaranandaji, who also passed away a few years ago. So Sundaranandaji himself told me many stories about Tapovan Swami, about his days with Tapovan Swami. Tapovan Swami was a very strict non-dualist. He never gave mantra diksha. He never gave sannyasa to anybody. All he did was teach the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras and other Vedanta texts, and that's it. He said just by attending those classes, you will become illumined. but his conditions were very strict. You have to be a monk, and you have to live in a very strict way and attend 2 classes a day till you become illumined. Somebody said only they were here usually had only 4 or 5 students. Obviously, if you put such extreme conditions, you have to find your no lodgings provided. You have to find your own cave. You have to beg for your food and come and attend the classes. And each class, what you study, you have to recite it the next day. If you fail, you're kicked out for the rest of your life. You can come back next lifetime, but this lifetime you're out. So he was like that. Now this Sundaranandji told me that this Tapovan Swami used to wander in the Himalayas, and Swami Sundarananda used to go with him. And that's why there's a book by Tapovan Swami, Wanderings in the Himalayas. Sundaranji told me once, in the glacier, the Gangotri glacier, where the river Ganga comes from, so Tapovan Swami was there and performing a small ritual, offering flowers, a few mantras, and an incense at that altitude there. And Sundaranji, as his sevak, his attendant, was standing a couple of paces behind him, supplying him with the whatever he needed, the flowers and the incense. So he said, Tapovan Swami was very tall. He turned around to ask for some more flowers. And as he turned around, Sundaranji told me, he said that I was stunned to see tears streaming down his cheeks. And he told me in Hindi, Hum chonk gaye, itne bade gyani aur aankh mein aasu. I was stunned, such a great man of knowledge, and his eyes are full of tears while worshipping Mother Ganga. So you see, so devotion, a person of great, and that shows that this person is an illumined person.
I remember that the gentleman is an expert on Madhusudan Saraswati.
Madhusudan Saraswati is a great example of the synthesis of knowledge and devotion. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in one place, in his commentary, he has a wonderful commentary on Bhagavad Gita, maybe the most detailed commentary on Bhagavad Gita, Gurhartha Deepika, the light, the lamp of the profound meaning. That is the name of the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. In introduction to one of the chapters, I think 6th chapter or somewhere, he says, those yogis who choose to sit immersed in samadhi, absorbed in the light, the formless light within their hearts, let them remain so. For us, means for me, for us, it is enough if I can see the little blue boy playing on the banks of the river Jamuna. I want to see. Little blue boy is Krishna. I want to see the little boy playing on the sand on the banks of the river Jamuna. So that kind of declaration. And you have to remember who is saying this. Madhusudan Saraswati is probably the greatest of the post-Shankara Advaitins, who has written the monumental Advaita Siddhi, the establishment of non-dualism, refuting all dualistic philosophies. And yet, extraordinary commingling of devotion and knowledge. All right, this is a very good point to end this talk. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.